Happy Thursday, and welcome to another edition of HuskerOnline Headlines. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple. Boy, it's been a week around the state of Nebraska, but we made it. We're here on Thursday, ready for another road trip out to Ohio State. And before Sip and I hit the airport, got a lot of headlines we want to get through here this week, Sip, and let's start it out. Headline number one, What does progress look like this week for Nebraska at Ohio State?
There's a question. What does
kind of a loaded question?
Well, I mean, first of all, you want to see progress. It's not a given that there will be progress. First of all, of course, it's not a given. But what would progress look like? Well, you find a spark on offense. You move the ball. You score 17 to 27 points. The offense, we've talked about this, but it's worth mentioning. Look what's happened in the last 4 games. 24 points against Illinois, 21 by the offense against Purdue, 14 against Rutgers and Lincoln, and then 7 against Indiana. So what do you see? Downward trend. It's not that the offense – okay, so there's a shock to the system in the form of a 56-7 loss to Indiana. There's a shock to the system. But it's not like the offense, it wasn't a shocking development because it's been in a spiral. The game was a shocking occurrence. We didn't expect that, but we've been watching the offense on decline for weeks.
Yeah, you almost forget about the scoreless first half at Purdue.
Right. I haven't, but yes, you do.
I mean, you almost forget about that because they won 28-10.
Yeah. Now, when you look back, Purdue, what were they doing there? Manning up Nebraska on the perimeter. Nebraska was having a hard time with that. Now it's just something you're seeing. So, the offensive issues we could do a whole show on. We're gonna do a segment on it, so I'm not gonna get into them now. But progress on offense. There's see number 10 there? See that kid right there? Harburg. Recognize that name? Heinrich Harburg. He might be part of progress, you know.
You've got to do something different to get them off.
That's all
balance.
I'm saying.
Yeah. And what is that different thing? You can't just do what you've been doing.
Exactly. And so I'm not coming at this from I got inside information. You don't have to have inside information.
It's common sense.
Yeah, it's a common sense discussion. Heinrich's got live legs. Heinrich is probably the best runner over there right now.
I mean, if Nebraska thinks they can go into Columbus and match up gun for gun and do what they've been doing,
good luck.
I mean, you've got to try something different.
Yeah. I mean, talk about it. I mean, this is what we're paid to do here, Sean. That on the perimeter, what's happening with Nebraska's receivers? They're not getting off the line of scrimmage. How do you think Ohio State will do that way?
With 5-star DBs.
Right. They're going to man them up, and they're going to try to lock them up right at the line of scrimmage.
Why is that? Like, I'd love to talk to a Kenny Bell, a Brandon Riley, a Westerkamp, just good receivers in recent years. Like, what makes it hard to get off the line?
It's man on man. It's just, Sean, it's mano on mano. The guy across from Nebraska has been tougher for whatever reason. You know, it's kind of a boxing match in a football game. You gotta win that battle on the outside.
Well, that's what Pelini's defense used to do every week. They would have Prince Mukamara and Alfonso Denner
do what?
And they'd punch them at the line.
Work on their hands.
And they couldn't get them off the line of scrimmage.
Remember when, hey, tell me I'm not crazy here. Remember when those receivers would go to Mark Kaczynski? Remember Rick Kaczynski? I'm sorry. Rick Kaczynski.
I was like,
yeah, Mark, I'm mixing.
You're losing me here.
No. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
They would go to Rick Kaczynski, the receivers. Bell would go to Rick Kaczynski for hand work. How do I get off the line of scrimmage? You're a defensive line coach. Help me. Sorry, Mark, not Mark. Rick. They would go to Rick. And that's part of it. Part of it's want to. Part of it's just knowing what to do, Sean.
But you would think, I mean, just logically, when you have bigger bodied people, they'd be stronger getting off the line. And that's not always a correlation.
No. So that's been part of it.
The blocking, though, too, has been another mystery. You would think big-bodied receivers equal good blocking.
It was sold to us that way. I mean, that's what I thought. But now you heard, and this is not anything that fans can't listen to on their own. You heard Matt Rule say what? I think it was maybe in response to your question. We haven't blocked well on the perimeter all year, he said. Huh. Well, that's a problem. Now, the good news is still half the season to go, a little under half the season to go. You can correct it. That's the good news. That's the good news.
Before we take it to headline number 2, HuskerOnline headlines brought to you by CHI Health, and they're offering their drive up care right now. Did you know that you could get a flu vaccine from the comfort of your own vehicle right now? You can schedule it online. You can get your flu shot, whatever vaccination or shot. You can do it right from the comfort of your own car. You can be in and out in a matter of minutes. And that's at their locations in Lincoln and Omaha, everywhere around the state of Nebraska. Just visit their website, chihealth.com/flu, to select a location near you, and then figure out, get all the forms filled out, and then you'll be well on your way. Pull up on your lunch break or whenever it is, get your flu vaccine and be squared away at that point. As you see, we've got our locations in Omaha, Council Bluffs, Lincoln. That's my location there on Yankee Hill Road, right by my house. And, I almost needed to go there. I got out of this funk. I didn't have to make a visit to CHI Health, but man, I mean, anybody that heard me speak last week, Steve Sipple, on Thursday,
you were in a funk.
I just felt, I literally had like an alien in my voice.
Yeah. And you were worn out too.
Oh my God. Today is the best I've felt in a week. So I am ready for the World Series on Friday night. I'm ready for football in Columbus on Saturday.
Isn't it interesting when you come out of an illness, how good it feels? And on the other hand, I'm the type that if I get an illness, I just think it's never going away. This is the way.
And we have different philosophies. Like I usually work out every morning, but this week I did take it easy to get my body. You like to work out hard when you're sick. Which
I work out harder, which is not
because Frank Solich told you that once.
I go harder when I'm sick, which is probably not a good idea.
I don't know if that's the right recipe.
It might change up as I get older.
Getting up at 4 a.m. followed by working out hard when you're sick. Hey,
we have to analyze these things a little bit. And by the way, thank you for correcting me on Rick Kaczynski.
Oh, Rick's going to come after you now.
Yeah, I don't know. By the way, you're right. He will.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into headline number 2. How does Nebraska end this offensive funk, particularly Dylan Raiola? He threw 3 interceptions this last game. He had the one against Rutgers. This Nebraska offense in its last 7 quarters, so from the late second quarter of Rutgers to now, has 6 turnovers. Its previous 21 quarters, Stephen M. Sipple, had 3 turnovers.
Yeah. He's hit kind of a part of the season, a rough patch.
Well, and let's be square. The opponents are tougher now, too.
Yeah, the opponents are tougher. You're putting a lot on your quarterback when all these other things that we've kind of talked about are not going well. And it starts with the run game being 99th in the country. Okay, Matt Rule, the way he wants to play offense, he said this would be a good run team. And really, the way he wants to play it needs to be a good run team. And it's not. It's 99th in the country. It's 14th in the Big Ten. They're averaging 127 yards a game, Sean. 127, the way they want to play, isn't going to cut it. So the conversation starts there, and that obviously applies to Dylan. Sean, go back to the off season. I said over and over, the one way they can take pressure off their young quarterback is to run the ball with a conventional running back running game. What do you see over and over on Saturdays? Struggle in that area. They never run it very well.
My question to you is, can Nebraska be a good running team without a quarterback involved in the run game?
Well, they thought they would be.
In the history of this program, in the last 40, 50 years, you can't really recall too many times where they've been a good running team without a quarterback having a piece of that.
I know.
I mean, you could go back to the, Jerry Tagge in that era, but
it's hard to do.
They have all their good running has always had at least an element of the quarterback.
Well, here's a question for you, Sean. Okay, the question, headline number 2 is, how does Nebraska end its offensive funk? Well, can you run Dylan a little bit? Can he be involved a little bit?
Can you figure out Heinrich's involvement more without making it so obvious?
Well, stop. We'll get to that in a second. Can't you just run Dylan a little bit?
I don't think they want to do that, though.
It's not what you want to do. It's about what you have to do.
I mean, there's a lot of people that wondered if Dylan's been a little dinged up.
Well, he has been. He hurt his ankle.
And, has that affected his throwing? But you talk about runs of 10 plus yards in this offense this year. There's only 17 10 plus yard runs by the running backs.
They had one against Indiana. One.
And I was going back and looking at some old data. So take a guess in 2014, how many 10 plus yard runs Amir Abdullah had
for the year?
Yeah.
10 plus? Geez, a ton. I'd say
45.
Yeah, I was going to say 50 some.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, there's all the backs right now combined have just 17 through 7 games.
Yeah, no.
And then you had Tommy Armstrong that year give you 32.
God.
So the quarterback and the running back that season had 77 10 plus yard runs.
They don't have an Amir Abdullah, obviously.
And, taking in Divino Zigbo, Maurice Washington, 2 other pretty good backs in 2018, they had 47 10 plus yard runs.
Okay.
Adrian Martinez added 30 on that same team. So the lack of 10 plus yard runs, because Matt Rule said this today, he goes, we've had a lot of good 8-9 play scoring drives, which is great. He goes, that is so hard to do in football. He goes, we need more 4-play scoring drives.
Right. Like Indiana had to make it 28-7. Remember?
Like plays where like you totally draw up the right play, a guy misses a tackle,
and boom, the guy's running.
And we haven't seen that at all.
Not nearly
like
enough.
Everything. And is that a schematic thing, or is it a personnel thing, or is it both?
Well, is
it both?
Yeah, we always do that either or, and usually it's both.
Somewhere in the middle,
or both,
or both, or both.
No, Rule had a great quote after the game. He said, "You saw Indiana, and they're getting, they throw a swing pass and it turns into 20 yards. It looks easy." He said, "For everything for us is hard. It just feels everything's difficult, and that's." Gosh, when you watch it, that's what it is. It just looks like, God, they're just scratching and clawing all the time. That's a bad sign.
Well, like to be a good offense in this league, you have to have all conference caliber players. How many guys on this offense today are playing at an all conference caliber?
Now you'll get pushback on this. You'll hear a lot of people.
Okay, who's playing at an all conference caliber?
They're not. But what people are going to say to you is, why aren't they? Because they're not being developed properly. They have talent. Now this is what you're hearing. That like Dowdell's a 4-star running back. He's not run like a 4-star running back. Why is that? He's a 4-star. Okay.
2 costly fumbles in the red zone.
Right. I mean, they got a 4-star or Fedoni. Hell, was he a 5-star?
No, high 4.
High 4. Fedoni's a high 4. Now he had 6 catches for 91 yards against Indiana.
Career catch number, career yard number.
Yeah. He's not Brock Bowers, though. I mean, so, no, you're not wrong. I'm not suggesting you are, but there are people that they're even right to a certain extent. There's some guys that were highly recruited, but they're not really playing that way, So when things are going wrong, it's seldom easy just to say, here's the problem.
Well, and if the running
There's
game,
a lot of problems.
If the running game did get going, though, it would open up a lot of other things. I believe that.
Oh, of course it would. It always does. I mean, if you were not 99th in the country and you were 10th in the country, Dylan would look a lot different,
Yeah, the play action would actually be effective.
There'd be play action.
Right now, you can't run play action.
Hard to do.
It's
hard to sell.
I mean, so the safeties are going to play back. They're not going to let that arm of Dylan Raiola beat him deep.
There's that. And then think about what we're talking about. You got to slow down sometimes and do this. They're not going to beat them deep. Hell, the receivers can't even get deep. They can't get off the line of scrimmage. So there's a lot going on. The receivers now, there's sometimes guys are running open, but seldom deep. And what teams have kind of figured out in Nebraska, like Indiana didn't play just straight man, but they played man on the perimeter. A lot of man on the perimeter, and then in the middle,
a match route concept.
Concept in the middle, yeah. And if Nebraska can't win on the perimeter, then there's just not much you can do. There's things you can do. You got to find it, but what's not happening. OC's not finding it. I mean,
all right, let's take it to headline number 3. Before we get to headline 3, brought to you by Bauer Underground. They've been providing support for the state of Nebraska and local contractor utility groups for years. Bauer Underground gives 100% to assure quality control for their customers and has an excellent management skills to supervise each and every job they contract for. The company and its employees are accustomed to deadline pressure on construction jobs. They take tremendous pride in meeting the deadline requirements while maintaining excellent workmanship on each job. Strategy is at the heart of what they do. For more than 25 years, their reputation has been built on basic principles, which include quality workmanship, on-time job completion, hiring and retaining high-quality personnel, utilizing the latest earth-moving techniques, maintaining safety for their customers and employees. Well, a lot more obviously coming from Bauer throughout this season, but we're grateful for their support and sponsorship here at Husker Online. Check them out at BauerUnderground.com to read more about what they do, who they've worked with, and more. Bauer Underground has office locations in Lincoln, Omaha, Kearney, and their home base in Norfolk. Thank you to Bauer Underground for sponsoring us here on Husker Online Headlines. All right, number 3, what to make of Nebraska's rough defensive meltdown at Indiana. You look at the Blackshirts, Sib. It was a 14-7 game late second quarter.
Mm-hmm.
Nebraska had a key third down that was 3rd and 9, situations like that where they could get off the field, and they got beat on Tommy Hill got beat on a throw down the field. And, for Nebraska, they couldn't get off the field. They could not force a punt. They could not get to the quarterback. Collectively, it was the worst game by far we've seen this unit play this season. And the pass rush wasn't there. The 50-50 ball coverage wasn't there. There were just so many things. I mean, the yards that Indiana had at halftime were at a pace to break the all-time record set in 1956 by Oklahoma.
Right. So Matt Rule identified right away. I asked him on to Monday, when you turned on the film, after a game, it's hard for a head coach to completely assess what happened for obvious reasons. But after he watched the film 4 times, Sean, he watched the film 4 times. He could address everything. He started with the corners. Corners lost 50-50 balls way too many times. In fact, our Pro Football Focus showed that the corners were beaten 12 of 13 times, targeted on 13 times in the top 3 corners for Nebraska. Tommy Hill, Sierra Wright, and Buford, beaten 12 of 13 times. Each of those guys allowed a touchdown pass. That's nightmarish corner play. Starts there. Not anything schematically, although Tony White mentioned that there's some things schematically he would have done differently. I don't think it was a schematic issue or issues. I thought there was a want-to issue more. You would say this. Well, I know you would say it because you do Pro Football Focus grades, but Robin does a defense. But if you look at those grades, really only 3 guys for Nebraska played well.
Gabayer.
Mackay Bayer, Hartzog, and you can make a case for Gifford. That's it. 3 guys. I mean, if you only have 3 guys play well against Indiana on defense, you're probably allowing 40 plus.
Yeah, the mystery was the disappearance of the defensive line.
Yeah, the big mystery.
And that was the strength of this team.
Yeah, Robinson had 2 tackles. Number 0 got shut out. Got hurt. Now, he was hurt for half the game.
Nash was.
Yeah, Nash.
Not Robinson.
No, I said Nash. Yeah, 0. He's number 0.
Oh, I thought you said Robinson. Sorry.
No, Robinson had 2 tackles. Nash had 0. Number 0 had 0. I think he only played half the game.
Yeah.
But anyway, no, they didn't get much done up front. Indiana.
And we didn't hear from Robinson this week. I mean, we heard from Nash.
Yeah.
But just getting a feel for what was and I get it.
Gifford said the issue was they wanted it more. I mean, I always appreciate Gifford's frankness.
Oh, he was angry.
Yeah, he's And now he said they responded well. We'll see on that. But I mean, here's the thing. Yeah, Nebraska turned it over and put Nebraska in defense in peril 3 or 4 times. But you identified the key part of the game, and that was 14-7 Indiana. Nebraska has a chance. They're down 14-7. Defense goes out on the field, allows a fairly long touchdown drive, 21-7. And then the Indiana 4-play drive. Big play, over. 28-7, ball game. Pretty much ball game at halftime. What were you thinking at halftime? Nebraska's going to come back?
And they got the ball first down 28-7. No, I mean,
no.
When it was 14-7 late second quarter,
yeah, that's when you thought,
okay, they could hang in this sword fight.
Yeah, I mean, in business, and then boom, Indiana, 2 quick drives, game over.
And they had multiple. I think they had at least 2 possessions. They could have tied it.
Yeah, so that's really disappointing. It's just that part of the game was particularly disappointing. It was actually midway through the second quarter when Indiana went up 14-7, but Nebraska got a stop, and I thought, okay, stop them and have a chance to tie this game. And this is a new game.
This game, too, to me, is a reminder of this is what the Big Ten is going to be like every game from here on out. I mean, when this NIL money and other things continue to come into this conference, there are no free Saturdays. The talent level,
really.
There's not a lot of separation. I mean, there's 5 teams that probably recruit at a higher level, and that's Oregon, that's Ohio State, that's Michigan, that's Penn State, that's USC.
So once you say,
and Nebraska's in a group of 13 teams that probably recruit, and you have to develop better.
Well, once you say, yeah, it puts a premium on coaching then.
And then so if you don't show up ready to go,
right?
I mean, when these coaches are making the amount of money they're making, and the NIL is as good as it is, there's good players on every team now.
That's what I'm saying. So the premium is on not only getting your players ready to go, but having them sound schematically and being sound schematically, putting them in the right positions to succeed. That wasn't the case against Indiana.
All right, before we take it to headline,
I didn't think. I mean, well, how could you say they were? It's 15. It was 56-7.
Well, the number of yards they gave up in the first half,
343.
I mean, that was on a pace to be almost 690 yards.
Yeah,
I mean that's insanity.
Yeah,
it's actually more remarkable. They only scored 28 points with that yard total.
Yeah.
But all right, before we go to headline 4, HuskerOnline headlines brought to you by Vintage Custom Homes. It's a time of year you're thinking about maybe building, and you want to build a house the right way. Check out Vintage Custom Homes. They've been around, based in Gretna, since 2008. These are pros. They know how to do high-end custom work. They can sit down with you, help you draw out the plan, find the location, come up with a plan that's going to suit and fit your needs as you try to build maybe your dream home here with Vintage Custom Homes. And this is not cookie cutter work. They do the custom stuff. They do things the right way, as you see from these pictures. I mean, they have some unbelievable builds across the Omaha metro area. And, look at the kitchen, and getting this type of work done. You might only get to do it one time in your life. You want to do it the right way. Work with pros at Vintage Custom Homes. Check them out on their website. It's vintagecustomhomesne.com. That's vintagecustomhomesne.com. And tell them that you heard about them from Sean Callahan and HuskerOnline, as we're proud to be affiliated with Vintage Custom Homes in Omaha. All right, let's move on. Headline number 4, Steve Sipple, a look ahead. Let's talk schedule. We've hit on Ohio State, but I think the other hard thing as you gauge the remainder of the year is your view of the schedule can almost change week to week. Like there was a point where okay, they'll beat UCLA. They'll probably beat Wisconsin. Well, then UCLA beats Rutgers at Rutgers. Wisconsin is on a red hot streak right now. But then on the flip side, USC has been, they're 3-4 right now.
They're 3-4. And since being 6-0, was they 6-0 last year? 5-9 their last 14.
And then
5-9.
Iowa has struggled.
I'm going back to USC. 5-9 in their last 14 games. 5-9. So no, you're right. These conversations definitely evolve. Teams don't stay the same during a season. They're getting better. They're getting worse. Unfortunately for Nebraska, offensively, you can't argue that anything but they're getting worse. I mean,
and it's easy to fall into the trap of chalk. Like everything's just going to stay how you think.
No, it usually does.
And in this league, with how good the coaching is and how good the players are, things change. And I mean, honestly, take out Ohio State. Like, who would you say is the toughest game of those remaining 4 games?
I would say, now I don't want to blow up Wisconsin too much. They've beaten Rutgers, Purdue
and Northwestern. Now, if they beat Penn State, which they could, that's a night game at Camp Randall
this week. Yeah. Then I think you say, okay,
they control their own destiny in the division.
Yeah. Then you say Wisconsin's a legit bear. So back to your question, the toughest game left.
I still think going to USC.
I'm with you on that, even though they're 1-4 in the league.
Because I have this feeling it's going to be put. Now, one thing about that game though is the fan base. Like, what will the LA fan base be? I mean, that's like a 90,000 seat stadium.
There'll be nobody there. There'll be 40,000 people. 40.
You think?
Yeah, there'll be nobody. Sean, they're 1-3 in the league. Okay,
with Maryland and Minnesota losses, and that's the thing. Like, I always like Notre Dame. One of the reasons I've always been told they don't want to be in a conference, they don't want to be put in a set of standings with teams like Maryland and Minnesota. Because then when you get beat by Maryland and Minnesota, that doesn't look good.
Ooh, interesting.
And look at you. I mean, like Notre Dame being independent, they're not held to a standard of standings.
Right. So now USC is.
But now USC's in a standard of standings or a set of standings with Maryland and Minnesota. They lost both those games. And for their proud brand, that's not good.
No, they're in a tough situation right now because it's kind of it's a program reset because Miller Moss is a first-year quarterback after Caleb Williams, and they have a whole new defensive staff. So while it is year 3 of Lincoln Riley, you could almost say this is a reset. And what they're trying to do is what Nebraska's been trying to do. They're losing close. They're trying to turn those close losses into wins. And usually what you're talking about in terms of a program's progression is the hardest step is turning those close losses into narrow wins.
They should have beat Penn State.
And then what happens if you're progressing is you start winning big. But they should have. They're not bad. That's the thing. I don't mind you identifying USC as the toughest game left. I think that it might be too. People though are gonna I guarantee in the comments say, come on, guys, USC's terrible. No, they're not. They're not terrible. They're close.
They beat LSU.
They beat LSU. And I remember telling you, watch USC. They're pretty good. But they've lost these close games.
And it's dangerous when you build on the portal because you can have results like this where those players show up for a big game, but then kind of take their foot off the gas. I mean, imagine USC rolling into Huntington Bank Stadium in Minneapolis. I mean, it's a beautiful venue, by the way.
It is.
But like, I'm sure they were like, we're just going to show up and truck these guys.
Right. And now they don't have that kind of team to truck anybody. On defense, they're small.
But the recruiting rankings, when you compare Minnesota versus USC, not even comparable.
Right. Yeah. But I think, I mean, it's kind of interesting when you phrase it that way. What's the toughest game? I think logic would dictate that it's Wisconsin, but I'm more with you on USC because of the trip, because of USC speed. The thing is, now they're small on defense, but can Nebraska take advantage of that? They're small up front. I mean, they're not a big team.
Iowa still has a schedule.
Yeah.
But man,
they look terrible.
Their defense has come apart.
Yeah.
Like they gave up almost 500 yards to Michigan State. So look at this Iowa schedule. Northwestern, they're favored. Wisconsin, though, that will not be easy. I'm telling you, going to UCLA, that's a toss-up. At Maryland.
Toss-up.
Now, they've won those kind of games, though, in the past.
That's not a bad schedule, though.
But they could win all those games.
Yeah.
They could lose 2 of them.
Right.
I mean,
I didn't say it was a good schedule, but it's not a bad.
I mean, I could see Iowa going 4-0 to 2-2 in that 4-game stretch before Nebraska.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm glad you phrased that question up the way you did. What's the toughest game? There's no
logical answer.
There's no real easy answer.
But Wisconsin too, but it's still at home. I want to know the kickoff time of that game too. Somehow, some way, Nebraska's avoided the 11 a.m. home kickoff.
Oh, geez, don't do that.
Could we get it for Wisconsin?
Don't do that. Can it be a night game?
It could be.
Yeah,
I think it's got to be the key is Nebraska. Can they make themselves more attractive to boost that game to get selected by the big 3 networks? And also, what are the other windows of TV?
So Nebraska's 5-2 right now, probably about to be 5-3. And I'm going to defend myself a little bit. because it's rough out there, and the fan base conversation's rough. I've said all along that I thought this was a 7-5 Nebraska team. They still have a great chance to get to 7-5. And so I don't feel like we've misled people.
You've misled us. You don't ask the tough questions at all, Stephen M. Sipple.
But I don't. I've said 7-5. Now I said I would be open to changing that had they beat Indiana. I'd been open to it. So much for that. No, I'm
well, and look, Illinois, if they hit the Luke Lindenmeyer pass, they win that game. It was a wide open throw.
God, yeah, don't remind me.
I mean, it was a great play call by Satterfield. Like, we're critical of Satterfield. He called a great call.
He deserves criticism.
But we're critical of him, and he deserves it.
Yeah.
But like, you go back to that moment, that was a big moment.
It was a big moment. It was a huge moment. I mean, if they make the field goal, it's a big moment, right?
Yeah. I mean, you forget about that. That game feels like months ago.
Mm-hmm. And it was so winnable. So yeah, it's odd. I mean, there's a CBS. Well, we'll get to this in a second. Keep going.
All right. Before we take it to headline number 5, Stephen M. Sipple, HuskerOnline Headlines is brought to you by who?
Oh, Sean, hold on.
Are you a little off your kilter here?
No, I'm not a little.
I can tell Larson Motors to cancel your payment this week.
Why would you do that? I'm not a little off my kilter.
He's not ready to work.
If you were looking for a new vehicle, Sean, we're doing this.
You're ready?
I'm not off my kilter.
3, 2, 1, go.
If you're looking for a new vehicle right now, and we're all thinking about it sometimes, how about go for a new experience at Larson Motors in Nebraska City? I said Nebraska City. Larson Motors is one of the Midwest's only dealerships with all the major brands in one location. See those brands? Ford, Hummer, Chrysler, GMC, Chevy, Dodge, Jeep, or Ram. It's never been easier than the opportunity that Larson Motors presents you in Nebraska City. So start your new experience today at LarsonMotorGroup.com. No S. LarsonMotorGroup.com or at Larson Motors in Nebraska City. Larson Motors, real people,
real deals. And what a comeback.
Oh, it's a huge comeback, Sean.
Have you been on that beltway down in Nebraska City lately?
I have not.
I mean, you almost feel like you're
what
in a major city. I mean,
God, really?
Getting to Nebraska City from Lincoln and Beatrice, I mean, it's this extravagant beltway, and it's you almost don't even realize you're in Lincoln when you.
I will tell Ryan Funk and Larson Motors, I am getting close to new vehicle territory.
So you might need to learn that beltway to get down there.
Exactly. I'm looking at my truck and I'm almost done paying it off. It's about time, I think.
Well, they'll set you up, I'm sure.
I know.
We'll get y'all maybe the bye week.
That might be a little aggressive.
All right. Let's get in.
I'd say by Christmas.
As we like to do, odds and ends, headline number 5. Ryan Day, let's start with him because he's obviously under an enormous amount of pressure at Ohio State. He's been given a $20 million roster. Mm-hmm. And I've talked to people, and everyone I've said, they're like, absolutely. I mean, somebody I talked to today said they might have $5 million in their quarterback room alone.
Really?
Yes.
Will Howard and who else?
They're freshmen, whoever they're.
Anyway, now what I've heard is he's not under. There's not a lot of pressure. I mean, job wise, like he's not looking at.
They should have beat Oregon. I mean, I really thought they were going to win that game.
No, I want to amend what I said. Absolutely, there's always pressure on Ryan Day, but not hot seat pressure right now. I mean, of course they should have beat Oregon. I would look. The thing you wonder about. How much involvement does he have in the defense right now? Because his offense is his thing. But you know what? They didn't get after the passer very well against Oregon. I would just wonder how much he's got to look into that. So does he go over on that side of the ball a little bit? I wouldn't be surprised at all.
What a great schedule, though. 8 home games for the Buckeyes this year. Look at the non-conference they played. Akron, Western Michigan, and Marshall.
Okay. Let me size up the schedule.
Then a first year.
They got to go to Penn State.
Right. I mean, the front half of their schedule till Oregon was easy. But now, you got Nebraska. Then you got Penn State, Purdue, and Northwestern. And look, it's.
Oh, you know what? Real manageable. I mean, you're going to have some tough games,
but the Indiana game all of a sudden becomes massive.
Oh yeah, that's a big game. At Penn State is obviously just. I mean, that's going to tell you a lot about both of them.
What if Indiana knocked off Ohio State? How shocked would you be?
Would I be shocked? Yes, I'd still be shocked. I would be shocked. I don't know. There's that mind out there, though, that if you just put Michigan uniforms on Indiana, they'd be ranked number 2 in the country. See what I'm saying?
Well, and how much does the AP poll really stack up to what the playoff poll is going to be? Like the committee
Good question.
We put so much stock in the AP poll.
I don't know why,
but
it's too early.
Why do we care? It's the main, once the playoff poll is out, I think the only ranking that should be cited is the playoff ranking.
I totally agree. Joe Klatt went on a strange rant about this a few weeks ago, saying that the AP poll is a joke. And
there's biasnesses.
Well, that it's just too early. And it's so hard. Now, he didn't say this. I'm saying it. How do you get a feel for a team like Indiana with all those transfers? What you're doing as a writer is a lot of it's based on the past and
preseason
perceptions. How would you know as a writer what Indiana got out of the portal? You would have to take time to study those James Madison guys. How would you even do it? So no, I don't. I'm what Klatt said is you shouldn't even have a poll. I don't know what date he set, but until much later in the season. Maybe November 1. Is that too late?
Yeah, the problem.
Is that too late?
The AP poll though keeps the AP fairly relevant within college football.
Well, yeah,
and that's why they do it. They're not going to stop doing it.
No, of course.
And USA Today, the coaches poll keeps them fairly relevant within college football. So the AP and USA Today, they need the poll.
Well, and we rush to our computer when Nebraska's ranked and write a story. And it's a little silly. I agree with you 100%. Once the CFP poll comes out, what do the other ones matter, really? They don't. That's the answer.
And expanding it to 12 this year,
playoff.
One thing that's going to help take away, they used to, this tiebreaker that they would always go to is the eye test, meaning the team with the best recruits. So SEC and Ohio States and teams that recruit better than other teams would always win the so-called eye test. Let's say if Indiana was in contention for the 4th playoff spot this year, and then they were up against Georgia for the eye test.
Tennessee.
They're going to lose that battle. But now in this 12 team, it won't be as heavily driven and political for that 4th playoff spot.
Right. Totally agree.
And it's interesting that we came 2-4 in the beginning at all when there was 5 Power 5 conferences.
I know.
When you think about 4, it was going to create problems from the get-go. Especially the years they took 2 from the Big Ten or 2 from the SEC.
It wasn't college football has had sort of an odd evolution because, remember, there was a time when it was voted on, when the national champion was voted on.
Well, then there was the computer poll element added into the BCS, and that's how Nebraska got into the Rose Bowl.
Right. So that was odd. That was an odd.
Because in 2001, they shouldn't have gone to the Rose Bowl, but the computer poll put them in. And otherwise, they were going to go to the Sugar. You remember this? They were going to go to the Sugar Bowl, and they were going to play Illinois. And they were going to be heavy favorites to beat Illinois and still finish with probably a 13 or 12-1 record.
Yes. Again, the evolution has been odd. If you looked at Kid, I've tried to explain to my grandsons, it used to be voted on. The national champion was voted on by sports writers. Their eyes glaze over. They don't even know. They can't even comprehend that world. Yeah, the sports writers used to vote the national champion, and that was the national champion. It's hilarious, and nobody really complained. College football was in a great place. It was cool. College football in 1981 was super cool.
Well, and the intrigue of playing a day bowl game that would have impact on the national title, and if Nebraska played at night and they could win their way to a title.
What an exciting
because you could get up in the morning not knowing if you were playing for the national championship or not, and then because of the Cotton Bowl or the Fiesta Bowl
result
or the Rose Bowl,
that
result all of a sudden would make the Orange Bowl a national championship.
It happened.
Game.
Yeah,
it happened multiple times.
Yeah, it was amazing.
That's how. I know one of the early Devaney championships, they had found out that the Rose Bowl or one of the other games, the team that was ahead of Nebraska lost.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, the Cotton Bowl maybe, and then all of a sudden the Orange Bowl became the national title game.
Yeah, think of the excitement then, and then while we're doing this look back in history, the bowls meant so much more back then. I mean, pretty much all the bowls, there weren't as many of them. In fact, if you go way back, there's 4 or 5, I think.
Well,
but they were huge. They were gigantic.
I mean, it's the cotton, the orange, the rose, sugar are the main 4. And the Sun Bowl.
Then the Fiesta Bowl came in.
And the Sun Bowl's been the Sun Bowl's been around as long as any of them.
Is that right?
God bless El Paso.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. But then the Fiesta Bowl became pretty
Fiesta,
big.
Yep. Nebraska played in an early Fiesta Bowl against Arizona State, and they lost.
Or is it Florida State?
Well, in 70.
I covered Florida State when I was in college.
Yeah, but in my dad.
You're right.
75, they lost to Frank Cush.
That's right. And then
that was my dad's freshman year.
Okay, then in like 86 or 87, they played Florida State.
And they played Michigan out there in a Fiesta Bowl.
Yeah, that's right.
Woody Hayes, or not Woody Hayes, but Bo Schembechler. Don't get that mixed up.
Wow. There's some Ohio State fans right now.
Mick, our big wrap-up producer, is going to get on me for that.
Oh, you are in trouble.
I'm in trouble by old Mick. All right, let's get into more odds and ends. We talk about where things are at for Nebraska. They're 5-2, and it could be worse. I think sometimes here on the front lines of the battlefield, we think of this as such a bad year, but on the outside, I don't know, Stephen M. Sipple, if people are like looking at Nebraska as this giant disaster right now.
No, CBS Sports did a great rundown of the 10 most disappointing teams. Think about Auburn right now, 2-5. Think about Auburn, 2-5. They're projected to win.
Well, USC
8 or 9. I'll go Arizona 3-4. They were preseason number 21. Florida State is the most disappointing team in the country at 1-6. All right. 1-6. Kansas might be the second most disappointing at 2-5. 2-5. Preseason number 22. Michigan, you'd have to say, is extremely disappointing. 4-3. Ole Miss 5-2. They're disappointing. Look at Oklahoma State. 0-4 in the Big 12.
Look at Oklahoma.
Oklahoma didn't make this list strangely at 4-3. Oklahoma is in a heap of trouble.
I mean, South Carolina went in and handed them their lunch.
Right. USC, whom we talked about, 3-4. Utah, preseason number 11, heavily, picked by a lot of people to win the Big 12. They are record. I don't know the record, but they're struggling, and they are in danger of not making a bowl game. And then Virginia Tech, I don't know why. I don't see them as part of this list. CBS Sports put Virginia Tech on at 4-3. I would have put Oklahoma on the list ahead of Virginia Tech. But so as bad as it feels at Nebraska right now, I think about Hugh Freeze. Think about Lance Leipold. Think about Lincoln Riley. Way worse.
And I think the feeling locally is more the fear of what's ahead.
That's it. That's it.
Like, you're going down a road full of a lot of tough games. And in life, we want assurances. Like, we want to know what happens.
Yeah.
And that's what's scary about the next 5 games for Nebraska. Like, we don't know what happens. And naturally, you think of the worst before you think of the best.
It's kind of human nature, I guess.
And there's a fear because the Nebraska fan is so beat down still. Because they haven't been to a bowl since 2016, and it's been tough. It's it's one of the more embarrassing streaks of this program in an era with 100 bowl games practically. Nebraska's not been to one since 2016.
They just get forgotten now, and so 5-2 is 5-2, and I don't like to diminish it because I always feel it's kind of disrespectful to Matt Rule and his players and his assistants. But it's kind of a shaky 5-2. And like you said, when you couple kind of a shaky 5-2 with this uncertain future, it doesn't feel great. 5-2 just on its own without context. That's not bad. That's about what I expected, to be honest. That's why when you do this thing we'll never remember this conversation, and we'll certainly never abide by it. But when we do that conversation throughout the preseason of what do you think the record will be? I never get into it too much because the record doesn't matter as much as what it looked like. And if you said 5-2 to me, I would have said, take that maybe. Like
right now, Indiana and Illinois are way better than anybody projected. And And I would actually argue Colorado right now is better than anyone thought they were going to be.
Well, yeah, when Nebraska played them, they're a different team than when Nebraska.
But give Nebraska credit.
Yeah.
They beat their butt.
Yeah, they pretty much beat their butt. You're right. Nobody, we did not even fathom Indiana being what it is.
Or Illinois.
Now, Illinois record-wise, I mean, they got a chance to be 10. And now they're going to play Oregon and get beat around, but after that, their schedule's really
Rutgers is about what you thought. They've kind of taken a step back, though.
They've taken a step back. They have.
Northern Iowa and UTEP stink, though. They're not good teams.
No, they stink. They're terrible.
Like, Northern Iowa's having a rough year.
Right. And UTEP's won one game.
But that part of that Mark Farley conversation after the game, though, like, he was not going to praise Nebraska because he saw some of the things maybe that we're seeing now.
Yeah.
And they didn't have the horses to maybe expose a lot of it.
Oh, I'd love to talk off the record with Farley and Bielema. Off the record. And I bet it wouldn't, like, if you're a Nebraska fan, you probably wouldn't want to hear too much of what they had to say.
Oh, can you? And Bielema off the record, I can only imagine how good he'd be.
Really good. Yeah, because he's such a.
I mean, he's so brash and open,
and he's intelligent. I mean,
and I like Bielema.
Yeah,
I mean, I've always respected what he's done, and
but you would say if you look at their roster, again, they could win 10, but that's really maximizing that roster. Really maximizing it.
All right, around the Big Ten, Friday night we'll get Rutgers USC. Massive game for both teams. It will follow the Yankees Dodgers World
Rutgers,
Series.
USC's a massive game
for both teams. I mean, it's a big.
You have to explain that.
USC's a 14-point favorite though at home.
I guess somewhat massive. They need to. USC needs to win bad. I mean, bad.
Yeah, they're 3-4.
Yeah. And
they're following the World Series in LA that night. So it's a big night in LA.
Now, watch that crowd. I'll be interested what that crowd looks like.
I wonder if there'll be a lot of that city is going to be captivated by the World Series.
Yep.
I mean, I don't think you fathom how big this World Series is, especially in a place like LA and New York.
God, see, USC, think about it. USC struggling the way it is will just be an afterthought in LA.
Are the Lakers going to be good this year?
They looked good the other night. And come on, it's the Lakers. Don't it doesn't even matter how good. Sean, you've been to LA. What is LA?
It's a Dodgers-Lakers town.
It's a Lakers-Dodgers town.
The Dodgers.
It's a Lakers.
Hey, Sipple, the Dodgers draw 55,000 a game.
It's a Lakers-Dodgers town.
81 games at 55,000.
Been there several times. It's a Lakers-Dodgers.
You don't watch a lot of Dodgers games.
You're a Dodgers fan. Of course you're going to say it's the Lakers. But anyway.
The Dodgers, though, are a melting pot of all cultures. They have Asian players, Hispanic players, African-American players. I mean,
the Lakers are also a melting pot.
Like just the different pieces of LA the Dodgers bring in. It really, truly is a LA team.
But we're getting away from the conversation.
Right, yeah, sorry.
No, the key is USC gets lost when they're not playing well. Lost.
Oh, and they're playing this run for the next 9 days. We're gonna have the World Series.
Yeah. Wow.
Then obviously Washington at Indiana. No,
that's a big one.
No Curtis Rourke. That spread though is still 6.5 for Indiana. College game day will be in Bloomington.
Man. So that quarterback that came in after Rourke looked good. He started 5 games last year. He's not a Johnny come lately. He's a 6'4", 260-pound. He
big
knows what
SOB.
He's doing. Yeah, he's a sophomore. He's an Indiana kid. I think they'll be just fine with him. Although, come on now, let's see. I'm not handing Indiana anything.
So Illinois is a 21.5-point dog at Oregon.
Yeah, that's trouble.
A very similar point spread that they faced at Penn State.
Ooh.
They were 18.5 at Penn State.
Interesting.
So will Bielema?
Yeah.
Because is Oregon going to be kind of? I mean, think about the schedule Oregon's had to play. I mean, they played Ohio State, then the Friday night game at Purdue, and now they got to get up for another game against Illinois. So
I wonder what that game will look like.
That will be interesting. Maryland at Minnesota. For both teams, that would get them to 5 wins. So massive for both those teams. Iowa, Northwest.
God bless your enthusiasm for
this
game.
I mean, to get to bowl eligibility for Maryland and Minnesota is a big deal.
Big. Yeah, it's pretty big.
Northwestern at Iowa. Hawkeye is a 14-point home favorite.
Oof.
That's a big number for Iowa.
Too big.
I think
probably.
Iowa's going to win.
Yeah, that seems a little big.
Michigan State at Michigan. The game's on BTN.
Oh, how the mighty have fallen. Michigan 4-3, and come on, they should have lost to USC. I mean, and probably should have lost to Minnesota.
So Michigan at Michigan State, 5.5 point spread for the Wolverines. Michigan State just hammered Iowa. I mean, what if Sparty goes in there and and beats Sharon Moore?
I mean, Sparty's always this. I always say this. They're kind of emblematic of the way I regard the Big Ten, which is you kind of forget about Michigan State till they're on your screen in Bloomington, Indiana at the Longhorn Steakhouse because you made a wrong turn.
That's our mission. We watched Michigan.
And we're sitting there, me, you, and Rob at the bar and watching Iowa, Michigan State. And I'm thinking, God, Michigan State looks pretty good. I mean, they got some dudes up front. They always do. I thought that last year when we went to East Lansing, people kept telling me, oh man, they're in the tank. Michigan State's in the tank. And we're sitting there watching the game. I'm going, they're not in the tank. They're beating Nebraska on the line of scrimmage pretty bad.
Longhorn Steakhouse, it was in the parking lot of a Home Depot. It was really a very industrial crowd in there.
But a very good steak.
It was good. It was good food, but
yeah. My salad was crisp.
You wouldn't want to get in a knife fight around there, though.
No, you wouldn't. But the salad was crisp. The steak was excellent. We had like a onion thing.
It was like their version of the blooming onion, but it was like all the pieces were pulled off.
It tasted so good.
You enjoyed that, didn't you?
I did.
And then finally, the big one, Penn State at Wisconsin on NBC. So when we get done at Ohio State, we should be able to watch that game. And I picked my pick today on this. I'm taking the Badgers in the upset in Camp Randall at night.
Shouldn't have told me that. I still got to do my pick.
6.5 point spread.
Okay.
So, but
yeah, Penn State looks shaky all the time to me.
Their blade has been kind of dull, where I feel like Wisconsin, the benefit is they have played some good teams already.
Wisconsin, though, I'm going to keep reminding
the USC game they lost.
I'm going to keep reminding you that they have beaten Rutgers, Purdue, and Northwestern. Okay,
and they lost to USC.
Yeah, I mean, they've kind of built this. Now, I don't want to, we got to be careful because people will call us out on this. We say there's parity. We say the Big Ten is, you have all these great coaching staffs and all players. Then you diminish wins. Not you, me. I'm diminishing those wins. So you gotta catch
call
yourself.
You out a little bit.
Yeah, you gotta catch yourself sometimes. But I've watched Wisconsin. They do not blow your doors off, Sean. Tyree Walker's a pretty good running back. He's put up some numbers. You got to give him credit.
Here's that schedule for Wisconsin, though. Penn State, Iowa, Oregon, Nebraska, Minnesota.
Penn State.
So the picnic is over. I mean, they're moving into a schedule now.
Yep. In Minnesota, you would say, come on, it's not that. That's a huge rivalry. The Paul Bunyan.
Minnesota, those played well.
They're tough up front.
They beat USC and UCLA.
Yeah. My fallback on any Big Ten team is they're tough up front because pretty much everybody is tough up front. And Minnesota's tough up front. And I'm telling you, the Paul Bunyan Axe game is exciting. God, those guys play.
Oh, and that's a Black Friday game.
Yeah.
So
I watch every year.
On Black Friday this year. No, they moved that game to Black Friday.
Oh.
So it's 11 a.m.
Good.
Then the Chiefs play the Packers, I believe, or the Chiefs play at 2.
Somebody, okay.
It's either Chiefs Vikings or Chiefs Packers at 2.
Fun.
Then Nebraska Iowa at 6:30.
Fun.
On Black Friday.
Wow.
We'll be in a press box in Iowa City, but we'll be able to partake in some of that.
God dang it. I don't like the football season to end. It's going too fast. We need about 3 more games added to this.
Well, we need a bowl game.
That would help.
I need to get you out of town for at least a trip.
They'll get to a bowl. Nebraska's going to get to a bowl game. Okay. It's the question I have for you. I was thinking about this the other day. I think they'll still get 7. What would that get them to?
Well, they can be select. So a 7-win Nebraska can be chosen over. Bulls can take them over 8-win teams. You're allowed to take a team over another team as long as there was only a 1-loss difference. A lot of it will depend on how many teams make the playoff.
Now, people are going to say, Sipple, you're crazy. How are they going to get to 7 wins with this offense?
If they got to 7 wins, they would probably be in Tampa, Nashville, one of those games.
Okay, that'd be great. Warm weather.
But again, let's not open our Christmas gifts yet. I mean, there's a lot of work before you get there.
You know what? You got to see some spark on offense. That's what
all
you
right.
gotta see.
Well, we'll see you in Columbus, Mr. Sipple.
Yeah, well, I'll be there. I'm looking forward to it. I'm actually looking forward to it.
Send you your boarding passes.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
So we'll see you. You're
at the Lincoln Airport tomorrow at 7.
Fly LNK.
It's so beautiful.
Oh, it's great. They don't even sponsor us on our show, but we fly out of Lincoln Airport as much as anybody.
Yeah, it is just glorious. I mean, it's like you're flying private almost.
Oh, it is, and it's one of the nicest airports you'll ever go into now. Right. It's beautiful,
refurbished, and really well done.
We'll see you in the morning. If you're not a member of HuskerOnline, we got a great promo right now, $40 off your annual subscription. Use the promo code Husker40. That's promo code Husker40 to receive $40 off HuskerOnline. For Steve Sipple, I'm Sean Callahan signing off for HuskerOnline Headlines.